Hi, everybody. We want to welcome you in to Coronavirus Inside the Arizona Numbers. It's Wednesday today. I always know it's Wednesday because I'm here at the station, an empty station, sadly. And I want to get right into the numbers today. We had such a good conversation yesterday, and I want to thank all of you for that. Your comments were so thoughtful, so engaging. We loved helping you find the information that you were looking for so that you can make the best decisions for your family. You know their health and their lifestyle. We're just here to help you find the numbers, and we're happy to do that. In the comment section, let us know where you're watching from as we welcome all of you in. Garrett, so much to talk about today. I do want to note that we just passed 24 million cases worldwide, and we'll talk about some very specific Arizona numbers here, but of course you can apply it to wherever you're watching from today. Garrett, as we look at the summary page here in Arizona, what stood out to you today? There were a couple things of note that we want to help everybody better understand.
What stood out, of course, in the summary page is the extremely low number of reported cases and the fairly high number of reported deaths that we had today. But I will go through.
They were almost matched. I mean, 187 to 104. We've never seen something like that.
Yeah, I'm going to go through and sort of explain how that could occur, because I know it looks very confusing at the surface. So just to really quick, we're probably going to be at 200,000 plus total cases either tomorrow, the next day, but we're going to probably be there before Sunday. It looks like we also we will at least in the next 3 or 4, maybe 5 days, which is good that it's taking this long. Past the 5,000 death mark as well. But here we are with today, 187 reported cases. That is the lowest number of cases that we've reported since I believe June 1st. And then 104 new deaths reported. So what you need to know about those two numbers is the 187 is actually when you look at the epi curve, you'll see that it's actually a little higher than that for what was reported this week. They actually removed a lot of tests, positive tests from July and early August that were placed on there in the last couple of days. So it shows as 187. Because it believes that yesterday's count, they realized that yesterday's count was too high and there was some duplicates in there, so they removed those duplicates. And the 104 deaths, that's from certificate matching, that comes from all throughout the curve. That's not within the last couple of days. It's really within the last 40 days at this point. So that's sort of how to understand that. Our PCR tests, our percent positives today were extremely low. They were at 4%. For just the basic Johns Hopkins calculation, 3.5 when you include serology tests, and about 4.4 when you only look at the electronic diagnostic tests, the ones at the labs that we have both the positives and negatives for. It's about 4.4% today. So all in all, very good numbers, all well under the 7% that we need to see in order to continue down our gating pathways.
Yeah, so some of these gating pathways, obviously they're different for schools than they are for businesses. And for those of you who were with us yesterday, you know that we are getting very close in Maricopa County, Pima County, and Pinal County. We are expected in those counties to be in the moderate category by tomorrow, which is why so many of you are getting emails from gyms that you belong to or different businesses that they're planning to reopen. Let us know in the comments where you're excited to head back to, maybe where you're not ready to go to just yet. What are you hearing from businesses? I know a lot of gyms have opened, and I was just talking to a coworker earlier who said his gym had reopened. They were giving them 2-hour time slots or 1-hour time slots. So he had to go sign up for that shift to be able to then go into the gym to work out. And I was anxious to hear then what happens when you hit the 2 hours. Is it like when I go to a trampoline park with my kids, everyone with an orange bracelet is called out of the gym right now? How are they rounding people up and making sure that they keep their numbers low? So it's a tall task for any of these businesses. So please be patient with staff and everybody working there as they get started to get into these reopening processes. And Garrett, when you're looking at this summary page, so They work extremely hard to make sure that these numbers are correct in there, and that some of these things end up as probable cases. So they would be under review for some time.
Yeah, I mean, this is an investigative process. Too many people look at the summary page and think that it's stamped every day, and whatever was done that day is never going to be altered and changed. I mean, this is basically a very simple forward-facing interface for an extremely complex medical system that sort of amounts to a billing system. So a lot of stuff is going into it. A lot of things are changing, and it does, you know, it is subject to revision all the time. So that's what we were talking about as far as these, you know, when you see these 187, you know, I'll show you the actual cases. I don't think you're gonna be able to see much from this, but I'll show you, as you can see, you know, things have gone down pretty dramatically in the last couple several weeks here. We're still looking at the peak case day was still June 29th. So you know, we really hit our peak in that early July period, late June, and it's been a downhill since then. I'm going to stop sharing this really quick,
Yeah.
and I'm going to show the one second. I'm going to show how the curve differs today, just so that you can sort of understand what's happening.
As you're pulling that up, I want to address Sharon's comment, and Sharon's expressing her concern. She says, I'm worried with all these places opening that our kids will never get back into the classrooms. I wish schools would be the priority here. And a lot of people are sharing those thoughts, Sharon. They think the exact same thing. The difference in this case is, if this can ease your worries a bit, that these businesses at this point, at this at this juncture, are only allowed to open at 25%. So these gyms, that's why there's the reservation process, and they're so limited in reopening. It's kind of like what they had talked about early on in all this, turning that faucet back on very slowly, and then watching how we see people start to arrive at the emergency room, or those case counts start to pop up. Then we would have some time until we see hospitalizations, and then ultimately, sadly, deaths in this case. But keeping that limited to 25%, that's the goal, to see if they're able to turn this on a little bit and make sure that we don't sort of flood the system. But the concern about the schools is warranted. And remember, they're held to that 7%. So some of these businesses hitting that 10% mark, which is why they're able to open. So a lot of people share your concerns. It's something that we'll be watching closely to protect our kids, obviously. Garrett, go ahead.
Yep, sure. Let's just go over what the differences in the numbers here so we can understand them. So you can see the light blue are cases that were added, and you can see obviously very, very little light blue in here. It's very hard to see. There was no lag in the cases being added. They were all added in the last 3 days. But here, and this is what I'm talking about today. You can see that actually 300 cases were added in the last couple of weeks just today, but they also pulled over, I believe, I don't have the calculation in front of me, but this is, I think this is about 160 cases
total
pulled from the system overnight. So, and that when they're pulled from the system, you know, people get suspicious as to why that is. A lot of times they're going through cases that are they're electronically sent to them through a batching system. So a lot of things might get erroneously duplicated, and they have to dedupe this data, because for the longest time, a lot of these labs were operating in they were just faxing over the results. So they were recording, AZDHS and the county health departments were recording the positives, but not recording the negatives. Well, now they're getting both the positives and the negatives sent to them into the ELR system. It gets put in the system, and then they pull back the duplicates. And that's what we're seeing right now, what's going on. So that's why there's such a large divergence there. You can see testing as well. All testing was done in the last 4 days, no lag whatsoever. You know, you can see actually like the last 2 weeks, essentially, almost all the testing done this last week, and then a tiny bit of testing done of the week of the August 16th, which was last week. And then the deaths, when we were talking about the high deaths, this is what we were talking about. This light blue, now you see there's a lot of light blue going all the way into the curve, all the way into June. We're having deaths being added to the curve today from all of this area. So this is because they're doing certificate matching. They're making sure that you know, these certificates go through multiple sets of reviews. They're making sure that everything is the way it should be, and so they get added to the curve. So 106 people didn't die over the last 2 weeks to a week. It's actually a much longer time period than that.
Al's asking about some of our travel restrictions, and Al, a really good question, because our numbers, as Garrett's illustrating here, are getting so much better. Some of our travel restrictions are being eased as we head out of Arizona. So if we're heading to New York, we had told you about that 14-day quarantine. That's now been lifted. If it's happening in the reverse, I don't have an update on that. We'll have to look into that if we're not limiting anyone coming in here or that they need to quarantine for 14 days when they arrive. But definitely check on that when you're leaving Arizona, because some of those restrictions are now being lifted, in particular on the East Coast, in New York, in that area. So that's some good news for people who are needing to travel out of Arizona. Garrett, these numbers that we were watching from ASU, we were hoping to get more information from them, especially after U of A was so forthcoming on their numbers. We updated everybody. Let me make this very clear, first of all. They're always reporting the cases to the state. So they're going into the overall case count, but universities were saying that they weren't going to give their specific number for their particular school or university. That has changed. ASU reversed course late yesterday. They had just reported a total of 161 cases to us, and they also said that they would give out information on a regular basis, although they did not say how regular that information would be. They didn't agree to a daily update or a weekly update, but we can tell you that they are giving us numbers, and that number for ASU is now 161 COVID-19 cases, both on and off campus. And then, Garrett, there wasn't a chart for U of A, but they did provide a website where they were giving updated numbers. Do we still have that website?
Yes, I'll pull it up right now. And yes, just so you know, on that ASU, just to give context, those 161 cases came off of, I believe it was like 33,000 tests. So it was a fraction of a percent that did come back positive. That's important to notate.
It's huge.
Yes, it's a very small number that they got back. However, they were as you said, they were not going to share this information. My understanding is that they're going to be putting together a dashboard in the next couple of days, maybe to the early next week or so. We'll start seeing a dashboard where they're going to be updating this on a regular basis.
Yeah, that's great news. And Garrett, before you go to U of A, I just want to update Al. Producer Josh did tell us, as of August now here, 2020, there are no current travel restrictions for individuals who are visiting Arizona. So if you're coming in, so thank you to producer Josh for getting that side of the story on that. So good news for people who need to travel, because that was a long quarantine. All right, for U of A.
This is what U of A gives us. You can see this is the first number that they dropped for us. They dropped this 731 to 825, where they tested almost 10,000 people and only got a positive back of 37, fraction of a percent. And then they just updated a daily total for 825. This is about a 1.7% positive. This 342 to 6 positives. So, and this is antigen tests as well. We actually have, as you can see, they've done a little bit of PCR testing, the diagnostic testing, and there's nothing so far. It's been a tiny amount. Now the diagnostic testing, the PCR testing, that is the stuff that that's when there is actually concern about symptoms and close contact. I believe they're doing the antigen testing for just basically all students. So that's what we got there.
Kimberly's asking, what are they then doing with the students in the dorm who test positive? They do have an isolation dorm set up for kids who do test positive. They had told us about that, so I wanted to update Kimberly's question right there. Oh, Al's writing, add producer Josh to the Emmy Award team recipients. Thanks to all the gurus. Al, thanks so much. Yes, Josh is great behind the scenes helping us on here as well, because normally when he's not doing this and helping us with this side, he is so focused on all of our restaurants and entertainment around the valley and all the things that are going on. In fact, he was hosting that conversation that was right here on this very same site last week about activities to do with your kids and things that were opening up across the state, both virtually and in person. And so he's got a pulse on all that stuff going on, and we're so lucky to have him and to have him join us on here as well. So thanks, Al, for that comment. All right, let's get to some of these other numbers. We talked about ASU and we talked about U of A and where you can find that. Tomorrow is when a lot of information is going to come out, but we know a lot of it here early, as we've been talking about, because we're tracking these numbers every single day. And as we told you, and as was confirmed by the Arizona Department of Health, Maricopa, Pima, and Pinal County moving into that moderate category. And tomorrow we'll help you dive right into those zip codes as that comes up as well. One number that we did see affected, and not in the right way today, but it may have a specific reason behind it, was our R0 number. So Garrett, as we move over to RT Live, which is a really easy site to help you better see all the states. And you know what, I promised one of our followers on here, Brant, that we would look at Iowa, and I pulled up Iowa's numbers on there as well. And let's see, where is Iowa? They were in the red today. I'm sorry, Brant, to tell you. Actually, in the last 3 states over there. So Iowa's R0 was 1.18 with a range of 0.92 all the way up to 1.38. So Brant, thanks for joining us on here. He's been asking for that. Meantime, we had been in the farthest green spot for a very long time, Garrett. And then as you and I popped on here today, we went, oh boy, what's going on? Can we better understand what's happening here? We're like in the 10th spot, and our error bar goes above that 1 quite a bit.
Yeah, as we talked about this last week, you know, a lot of times what's going on with this RT and what we were talking about just now, where I said, you know, people have to not think about this data as sort of stamped in time. You know, it's changing, it's fluid, they're moving it. However, because these are all done with scripts and with scraping, and it's a computer must always assume that everything's stamped in time. You can do some sort of formulas to basically smooth out the data a little bit to make sure it's like, okay, this is what we presume might be going on. But we've had some pretty wild swings in the last couple days. In fact, the last couple of weeks, while Arizona is catching up with this onboarding of some of these labs. And like you saw yesterday, I think our percent positive either yesterday or the day before was 17% because we had so many cases added overnight. I think it was just over 900 cases. And now we're back down to 100 because 100 and whatever it was, 187, because we have this you know, these cases are being withdrawn after they were put on there. So it just causes noise in the data, and this does cause the RT to fluctuate. I would expect as they get more people onboarded, as the ELR issue does no longer is a concern, we will see this not jump as much. I'm not too concerned about this estimate today. I think it's impacted by yesterday's numbers too much. We'll see what happens tomorrow.
Okay, so it's just something to watch at this point. But
yeah, I mean, even tomorrow's number, I mean, our RT could drop like a rock tomorrow because we only had 187 tests. But realistically, like I just explained, a lot of those were deduped from yesterday. So it's one of those things where we're going to have to wait for 2 or 3 days for the data to smooth out enough to be more reliable.
Yeah, so nothing to worry about at this point. We'll make a point to check in on it tomorrow, although we will have a lot to talk about in the form of zip codes. And we're not going to get into the zip codes too much today, but I do want to address Lisa Ann's comment just a little bit ago. Lisa, where'd you go? Katie, where can we go to check out our zip code? So, Lisa, I will tell you, tomorrow is the big day you want to check it out. If you want to take a peek today, just for reference, we can show you how to get to that exact map. But tomorrow after about 5 o'clock, that whole thing's going to be updated. And I'm saying this assuming that you're in Maricopa County. I don't know for certain, Lisa. Will you comment and let me know that you are indeed in Maricopa County and not somewhere else? So we've added this school dashboard on there because in Maricopa County, it gets very specific, down to those zip codes, down to the neighborhoods. So I'm hoping that's where you're watching from because you'll get a detailed map. If not, we're going to have to walk you through some of the steps to find that information somewhere else. But come back tomorrow because we will really dive into that both Thursday and Friday. So I'll watch for your comment there as we go. One note on that R0, not to jump around too much in the RT Live site. That is figured day to day. Is there anywhere that gives a rolling average of that then, Garrett? And would that help smooth out some of those anomalies?
I don't think so. I think the whole point of the well, in fact, interestingly enough, I'm gonna walk back what I just said. I think that my COVID projections, I think that is a stamped in time guess as to what the R0 is for that particular day, and it doesn't recalculate the curve on a regular basis. And it is right now at a 0.85. In fact, our R0 on the projection site hasn't changed. It's been at 0.85 since, when does it start? August 16th or 15th is when it started at 0.85, and it hasn't changed much.
Okay, yeah, so
So
we're not that far off because today's 0.88. I guess the biggest concern is that margin for error in there that takes us above the 1.08. That makes you
yeah,
kind of go,
and
okay.
realistically, the RT is, because it relies on all of this data. It's not really a leading indicator. There's others that are a better leading indicator. The COVID-like illness, syndromic surveillance. The CDC does have a dashboard. I don't even think we've ever shown this, but I'll send over the URL to producer Josh.
Okay.
And it's basically, it's a dashboard that actually tracks the COVID-like illness in emergency departments in specific states every single day. So it's a really good sort of, that's one of the better sort of canary in the coal mines. I know I use that word, that phrase a lot, but it does help us. Like it's a day-to-day look at the CLI. And on AZDHS, we're only used to a week-to-week look. So I'll share this really quick just to give a quick look at this. Here it is. I've already got it picked up for Arizona. And there's a couple syndromics on here. You can see there's COVID-like illness, which is this one right here.
Right.
And you can see it's gone. It only gives us from our peak, June 28th. And you can see at our peak, it was registering about 16.5 a day. And then it's all the way down here at 2% now. If this starts to move, this syndromic line, if this starts to increase, because this is given on a daily estimate, this will be a major cause for concern. You can see this line right here, shortness of breath. That has gone up a little bit. Right here, this one right here, which is, I think this is ILI, the influenza, and this is, we're not in flu season, so this is at its lowest. And then pneumonia, you can see it's sort of tracked with COVID-like illness at this point. So this is a really good sort of the first thing to look at to see if things are going to start to turn on us, if they start to turn, because it's going to show up here before it shows up pretty much anywhere else.
Yeah, Paula writes, as soon as winter hits, it's going to be ugly. It's one of the things we'll continue to track for you. That's the fear right now, Paula. I'm curious for those of you joining us on here to take off from Paula's comment right there. Are you in any way preparing for a second wave? I'm curious what you all are doing. I see a lot of mobility out there, a lot of people out running errands, and I'm wondering if you're quickly getting out there to do the things that you need to do, and then you plan to sort of hunker down again if a second wave comes, or if we see sort of a pop from some of these openings here, and that adjustments have to be made. So leave that in the comments. I'm just curious what you all might be doing to prepare, changes you might be making. Some people are saying, I'm buying weights because I'm not going to go back to the gym, or I'm going to go back for a little bit and then buy some weights for home. People were telling me that they're double the price, that if you go online to try to buy them right now, they're double the price. It's interesting. Sewing machines are selling out, workout equipment selling out. So it's interesting what people are buying right now as they sort of prepare for things. All right, Garrett, when we look into some of the demographics, and I want to quickly get back before I get to that to Lisa Ann's comment. So Lisa, I see producer Josh put that information in there, and I think I know why you're curious about this, because there's so many meetings in the evenings now going on for the school districts in your area. I know everybody's sort of reevaluating what to do right now. As soon as these metrics start to drop, they're trying to make some decisions and get ready for whatever their plans are. So Lisa, look at it today, but then be sure to go there after 5 tomorrow to that zip code map, because it's all going to be updated again, and there's going to be a lot more information on there. So be sure to do that. Garrett, when we're looking, and we'll talk about the zip codes a lot more tomorrow, when we're looking at these demographics, and it's interesting because the Arizona Department of Health sort of breaks out the demographics on their page, and we can learn a lot about gender and age and other things that are going on in their lives. When you click on that page, an interesting thing here about women in Arizona. The women were tending to make up a majority of the cases. At about 52% of the confirmed cases were women. But then when you look at the chart for loss of life, men were the larger group to not survive this.
Yeah, this seems to be pervasive across all jurisdictions and all areas where COVID-19 is hit, which is essentially everywhere at this point, in that women are showing up as the higher number of confirmed cases. Now, again, we have to understand that this is a confirmed case number, so there's several variables that could be, and this is what people have been talking about, what these variables could be. Is it that women are more susceptible to the virus, or is it other things like men are less likely to get tested and become a confirmed case? Is it because women have had more, there's more women in more essential fields than men? There's so many variables that could sort of be introduced in why women have more cases than men, but it is what we've seen. We've seen this constantly. But as you said, when we go to hospitalizations, we'll start there. This is a much better curve than it used to be. I used to say don't use this for anything, but they've done a really good job catching up with it. And you can see now it flips to 51-49 males. So there's more men who've been sent to the hospital on COVID-19 than women. So, and then of course, to the final, the case outcome, as you can see, it is much more likely that men die from COVID-19 than women. It's almost a 60-40 split at this point.
Yeah, just interesting. And it'll, sometimes people say, well, who cares, men versus women, whatever. It's about looking at if something can change, if something is different biologically, or if something is different socially, and then how they work to either educate, or if it's people not going to the doctor, it's getting people to go to the doctor, whether it's removing the stigma, whatever it is, trying to socially get everybody on the same page to either go get tested or go seek care when they need it. Speaking of getting tested, this week the CDC released some updated guidance, which they do from time to time, on the diagnostic testing. And the guidance continues to recommend that people go get tested for if they have COVID-19 symptoms, or for those who are asymptomatic, but that they have had recent close contact with someone who is a COVID-19 case or COVID-19 positive. Because we have adequate testing resources here in Arizona, and that these lab turnaround times are happening fast enough, AZDHS is recommending that anybody who is concerned that they have been exposed to continue to go get tested. There are over 400 testing sites here in Arizona. Do I need a COVID-19 test.com is the website right there on your screen. If you want to find out where they're doing the saliva-based testing sites, that's the one I did. It's so easy. Or any of the other testing sites around the valley. So you can go sign up for those. Or if you need this website in the future, you can give that out to friends or family if they're looking for a spot to go get tested that's convenient for them, close to them, or in hours that work for them, or in the style of testing that they feel comfortable with. I'll tell you what, the saliva testing was so easy. So it was the way to go for me. All right. Diane's asking, where can you get a swab test? That'll have all that information on there. So go to that website. Do I need a COVID-19 test? It's got all the information on the saliva-based testing sites run by ASU, and then the other testing sites that are like the nasal swab. It has everything there. So go peek at that. Let's see, Garrett, any other things that we wanted to discuss today? I know that yesterday when you were looking at some of those numbers on the charts where we're plugging the dates in for lives lost, that July 17th is still holding as the highest date with 95 lives lost on that date. We don't see that changing at this point unless we get some sort of second wave, because there aren't other days. There's maybe one day that's close, but that would move it back the other direction.
Yeah, and because a lot of, and as we've seen, a lot of the deaths that are coming in right now are from certificate matching, and they're coming through. They're not coming from a concentrated timeline. Back in July, when we were seeing deaths, they were coming from the last 10 days. So, we would sit there and watch as a particular day would start to increase by leaps and bounds, and that happened with July 17th. But now, because all of our right now, that's not occurring. We're simply seeing all these high death days are more just filling out the curve and not being concentrated in one or two places.
Yeah. All right. Let us know in the comments what other information you want us to help you find, any data that you're looking for to help make the best decisions for your family and your life. I always say we're not here to make decisions for you. We're here to help guide you through the numbers, to guide you through the data that's coming out of the state of Arizona. And a lot of information, as we said, coming out tomorrow. We'll know a little bit more about the counties that are making the cut. And we talked about schools, and I want to give everybody an early heads up. Yavapai and Apache counties were the only two that made it into the category to safely open their schools per the benchmarks. Obviously, schools can make their own decisions. They're leaving that up to the particular district. But if we're looking at the benchmarks that are out there, Apache and Yavapai look like they're close. But can we look at La Paz? Because it looks like, Garrett, they might make it into that category tomorrow, which would change a lot for people there.
Yes, let's pull up the dashboard. And of course, it's breaking for a moment, which always happens. Okay, it's ready to go. So yeah, let's look at the dashboard really quick.
Okay, and as you're pulling it up, Diane, saying website one more time, please. Diane, happy to help you. Do I need a COVID-19 test.com? I'll say it one more time. Do I need a COVID-19 test.com? If you have any trouble finding that, you can also go to the Department of Health Services site, and they've got all 400 sites there. All right, Garrett, how does La Paz look?
Oh, La Paz looks great. You can see well under 100 cases, definitely a case drop going on. When I say 100 cases per 100,000 on a weekly basis, definitely well under that number. You can see at this point, 3.8%, less than 4% positivity on this last August 2nd, and it's likely going to sort of maintain that number. Let me just take a quick look at La Paz on the PCR box. And just see if that's going to continue. Yes, it's going to continue. So it, in fact, doesn't even seem that they've had any testing. They haven't even had any testing done really for about 3 or 4 days. Some of these smaller counties are almost COVID-19 free. Greenlee, for example, any day now they're going to be pretty much 0 confirmed cases there. So, so here's La Paz. As we said, they're probably going to make it in tomorrow. Did we talk about some of these other small ones? It looks like Greenlee will also make it in tomorrow. As I said, they're nearly COVID free at this point. I think we've already said that, yeah, no, Cochise has got to wait 2 weeks because of that. And then it looks like, yep, they're going to have to wait 2 weeks. That was Santa Cruz, by the way. I'm sorry. Pima County, nope, they're not going to be next week. It's going to take them a couple weeks at least. Maricopa County, same thing. It's going to take at least 2 weeks for Maricopa County to make a 7% threshold. Yuma County is nowhere near it. So, and then we'll look at Pinal really quick, just because that's the next. And Pinal County is not near it yet either.
And that specifically is the school's dashboard that you're looking at there.
Correct. Yes, This is the school's dashboard.
So we just wanted to give all of you sort of an inside peek at what's coming tomorrow. The official sheet will come out, the one sheet, if you will, that kind of goes through all 15 counties and helps you better understand who's making the cut and who's not. But that's sort of how things look. Of course, reevaluated every single Thursday. They sort of even that out, the rolling average, to take out any anomalies in there. I want to address the comments. There's a really interesting conversation going on here, and I won't pick just one. Well, maybe I can if I can head back just a bit. Talking about, so if we see, this is fascinating. So if we see a spike coming up in these next couple of weeks, or a bump, call it whatever you will it be blamed on Labor Day? Will it be blamed on some of these businesses being allowed to reopen? Will it be blamed on the colleges and some of the schools reopening? So we have sort of this mix. Everybody's kind of chatting about this in the comments. Interesting. I didn't think about all three of these things sort of happening at the same time in this. Will there be any way, Garrett, in some of these numbers to maybe separate that out? Obviously, we're getting the new numbers and dashboards from ASU and U of A that they've been trying to crack down on some of the parties that are happening there and threaten both suspension or expulsion from the university if you're affiliated with some of these parties. Oh, Paul's writing, yes, Katie, trifecta. Yeah, so interesting idea here. That we have a holiday where people are going to be tempted to get together. We have some of these businesses opening, albeit limited to 25%. And then we have college and some of the schools coming back together. Kathy's writing perfect storm. Yeah, Andrea's writing Labor Day will cause a spike. So it's so fascinating. I love this in the comments. Those of you weighing in on what you think this will be.
So I guess the way to sort of, it's and it is extremely difficult to parse these numbers out, and it's going to take a while to really parse them out. But here's sort of my 30,000 foot view on how to sort of what could be the biggest indicator. So we'll start with Labor Day. Labor Day, if Labor Day is a major cause for an increase, we're going to see a couple things. We're going to see a massive mobility spike in the Google and Apple mobility data that they release.
And is that sensitive enough down to the day then, Garrett, or down to the weekend?
I believe it is. The Google and Apple is sensitive enough down to the day that we would be able to see a massive spike for one day. So that would be sort of a good indicator that, that's your first. That doesn't mean that things are going to happen. It just means that that's the first indicator. And then I also presume that if it is Labor Day, that it's going to be obviously a much bigger spike because it'll be harder to contain and contact trace, and also it's going to take longer to materialize. So that's sort of the worst part, is that just because Labor Day, if there's mass movements, mass interconnectivity with people, it's not going to really show up in our feeds for several weeks. We'll have to rely on that CLI number and the emergency room department's visits to see what changes. Now, if it's the other things, I think we'll be able to see a smaller spike earlier, and then see if that actually continues or is stamped out. If it's the colleges, for example, or the schools or something like that, because that would be more isolated areas, whereas Labor Day would be sort of a much larger, just statewide increase in many ways.
Yeah. Jacob, thanks for that comment. Jacob writes, being informed only equals scared if you cannot process the data for yourself. Absolutely. That's why we jump on here each day to sort of walk everybody through the numbers and help you better understand so that everybody can make the best choices for their own lives. I've said it like more than enough times here today, but we're not here to make decisions for anybody's lives. We're just here to help you find the information you want. So Jacob, thanks for that. Yeah, definitely not here to scare at all. Andrea writes that she believes we'll see a spike from businesses first, that Labor Day won't really hit until the end of September. It's going to be really interesting to see. That was that's why I always love getting together with all of you on here, because there's some really interesting ideas and conversations happening. So we'll just see how things look. Paul's writing, how long did it take to get numbers from Sturgis? That was a week-long event. So South Dakota,
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, South Dakota is my home state. So many friends and family still there, and I watch the numbers very closely. I will say they were the last on that are not chart right now. They are the worst state in the country for that at this point. So we'll sort of see what happens there. They did track how many different places all of those people to Sturgis came from, and it was really all over the country. It's funny. It's funny to me because growing up there, everyone knows of Sturgis and everyone knows that goes on. But for a lot of people, they had never heard of the motorcycle rally there. So this is the first year that they'd heard of it.
I pulled up South Dakota on DVOC 91 DVOC just to show what you're talking about. And you can see, there has been, this is sort of a low point, and that's 40 days ago. I don't know when Sturgis was, my apologies, but you can see it's been increasing since then. And it's actually right now at a peak that I don't think, and this is the per capita gap, 100, this is, what is this one here? This is 153, and now it's at 171. So South Dakota is actually experiencing a peak right now.
Yeah. Obviously things are spread out there, and there had been less of a concern just based on distance, but we'll continue watching that. Garrett, a lot of people have been asking about the form on Arizona Department of Health site to fill out to attest that your business is going to follow certain rules and health guidelines. In fact, Lisa just asked for it. What is the link for that form? Lisa, it's right there on the AZDHS site. Producer Josh just added it right there, that the things that they're looking for. You still need to sign that form in order to be in compliance when opening up, but you don't have to submit that long application that folks had been filling out. We heard from one business that submitted 314 pages in order to open up, and then we're going to hit the metrics tomorrow. So they don't really need their application anymore, but they do need to sign that form to be able to be cleared to open up. Let's see. I think we're almost running out of time. I want to get to any final questions that we have on here. I know we have not talked about hospitals today, have we, Garrett? We have not. There's a number we do kind of want to continue to watch. It's one that we've talked about earlier on here, but I want to make sure that we let folks know that we're still on it, and let everybody know where we stand in this.
Yes, I've got it pulled up. I'm just going to go through the COVID curves really quick, and I will go through the increase on hospitalizations. There was no increase on hospitalizations today. That was a reporting glitch that the AZDHS announced this morning, right after the publish of the data. They had when one of their partners, one of the hospital systems, had incorrectly reported the data, and it showed a massive jump. It was over double what actually occurred today. So they made the adjustment a couple hours ago, and now we went from inpatient, the acute care beds, we went from 999 to 967. So we did see a decrease in patient care or inpatient beds yesterday. And then ventilator use went up very slightly, but again, very slightly. And it's only one day so far, so I don't want to say that I'm in the, we're not really concerned about that quite yet. ICU numbers went down, discharge numbers went down. This is the one that is sort of causing, I don't want to say concern, but it is something to watch. We have had a couple of these 3-day increases in emergency room visits, and they have resulted in a trend has not developed from these. So that's the good thing, because right now we're on a 3-day visit and a pretty significant jump in the emergency room department visits just yesterday. But as you can see, still lower than the week before. So we're going to watch this. It's not cause for concern yet, as when you look at the week, it's still going down, but at the same time, we're at the end of this 3-day, and we never know if this is a pattern. We never, we don't know until the next couple of days what's actually going to happen. And then intubations did increase. But you can see that is still sort of within almost the median of what we've seen throughout the pandemic is where it is right now at this 64.
All right, Sydney's asking, wouldn't we want the discharge numbers to go up?
Yeah, of course, but the discharge numbers are only going to go up if there's people in the hospitals. So,
they're limited to those numbers. Yes. Yeah. So we have
now, of course, though, I haven't had to say this in a while because we haven't talked about the discharge numbers, but we also, although it's much less likely now, but back in these numbers out here, when we were looking at discharges is not just leaving the hospital, but it's literally just discharging a bed, which means it could also be a death. Yeah. And while that was sort of something that we had to touch on back here when we were watching these discharge numbers like a hawk, nowadays that's still the case, but as we've talked about, deaths are much less frequently coming from these day before type situations. So it's mostly people that are leaving the hospitals at this point, vast majority.
Okay. Nina's asking about ventilator use specifically to COVID and not to overall use. And we can show her where to find that. Oh, we don't need to put her comment up. It's got something rude in there that it's not worth it. But we want to show her where she can find that instead of calling names on here. We'll be happy to show you where you can find this information.
Yeah, it's right here. It's at the very end right here. You can see it's gone down. It's under 200 still, and that's as you can see, it's essentially under where it has been since the very beginning. So right now, ventilator for COVID use is not an issue. And we're essentially the lowest reported number, 133, and we're just above that essentially.
Yeah, so you can see those numbers separated out. All right, we're going to have so much to talk about tomorrow. We've hinted at some of it here because these counties are going to be updating their numbers as they do every Thursday. So we can peek at these numbers every single week or every single day, but since they're sort of smoothed out for that rolling average, the state has agreed to look at the numbers on Thursday. That's the day they're releasing them. So official, if you will, those numbers will come out. We'll go over all of that with you, help you better understand what all of that means. We're also on Thursday waiting for those zip codes and those school districts to be split out specifically. We are happy to walk you through those. We're hoping that they'll come out early, but they usually come out late in the day when we're already done chatting with you here.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
what
I can promise is we'll talk about those on Friday if those don't come out till late. So we'll definitely be updating you on the schools and that situation with the early morning numbers, and then we'll do a deep dive on Friday if we don't get that information out. Sarah's asking, do we expect Governor Ducey to speak tomorrow? At this point, we just don't know officially. They tell us the morning of. A lot of people have been mad saying we don't know early. We don't know what's going on. We also don't know early. So the second we find out, we let all of you guys know, and we let you know when he's going to be speaking. talking and at what time. So lately he's been talking before we go on here. We'll recap all of it if you miss it. We'll take care of you. We'll walk you through it all as always. Okay, we're short on time. We got to go. Find Garrett on Twitter over at Garrett_Archer. I'm on Twitter at Katie Raml. You can find me on Facebook as well. We continue the conversation over there, facebook.com/news from Katie. Our latest newscasts come up at 4 o'clock. They're prepping over there right now. I'll be doing the 4. Everybody's got you covered at 5, 6, and 10 as well. We will have all of that. And as always, the very latest coronavirus information at abc15.com/coronavirus. Thanks, everybody. Be safe out there. We'll see you same time, same place tomorrow.